Hello, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Portland's Voter Forum for the Republican nomination for election to the U.S. House of Representatives for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. I am Chris Kobe, a member of the Portland League and the moderator for this forum. The League is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to making democracy work. We believe that democracy works best when voters are informed about issues and engaged in their communities. We are presenting this forum to give eligible voters the opportunity to learn more about these 3 candidates. We are grateful for support from the Carol and Velma Sailing Foundation, the Weiss Foundation, the League of Women Voters of Portland Education Fund, and our media partner, Metro East Community Media. Oregon has a closed primary system for the 2 major parties in the state. That means that in order to vote to select the nominee of a major party, you need to be registered as a member of that party by the April 30th deadline. The 3rd Congressional District encompasses most of Portland east of the Willamette River, except for the central east side and the rest of Multnomah County to the east. All candidates for this nomination were invited to participate in this voter forum. All 3 candidates accepted and are here today for this forum: Gary Dye, Joanna Harbor, and Teresa Orwing. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for participating. Under the voter forum protocol agreed to by the speakers for this event, each of the speakers will give a 2-minute opening statement, followed by questions we have prepared based on league positions and league members' interest, and each speaker will have a 2-minute closing. Each speaker will have up to 60 seconds to answer each question. The candidates have previously agreed in writing to comply with these rules and other requirements. To determine the order in which the candidates will present their opening statements and closing statements and answer questions, we will use the Secretary of State's current and previous official candidate random alphabets drawn for each election cycle. The first opening statement will be given by Gary Dye. Mr. Dye, go ahead.
Hello, yes, my name is Gary Dye. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and for about 25 years, I was a libertarian in the Libertarian Party. Last office I ran for was U.S. Senate in 2020, but I found the Libertarian Party to be completely ineffective, and so a couple years ago, I switched over to be a Republican. I ran for Metro General Council president 2 years ago. That didn't work out very well either. But now I'm a Republican, and I'm trying to bring some of my libertarian ideas to the Republican Party. Republicans and libertarians have a lot in common on the economic front. So I think a lot of those things would work out very well. However, I'm a very innovative person, and I crossed a few lines there with the libertarians. They didn't like a few things I had to say either. And I'm bringing a lot of innovative ideas to the Republican Party because our government is in very bad shape. We're headed into for a depression if we don't do something about our debt, which is going to probably just kill the dollar and hyperinflation and put us probably in a greater depression than the Great Depression. I want to fix all that. And I just want to say that I'm quite an ideologue. And because I'm an ideologue in my own ideology, you can bet that I'm not going to be bought off. I'm not going to be changing my positions, even if that's what the party wants me to do. You know, I'll probably be a rogue, and I'm going to be doing a lot of good things for the people, I believe.
Okay, thank
That
you.
is all.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. Ms. Orwig, we'll hear from you now.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm blessed to be here. My name is Teresa Orwig, and I am 54. I was born and raised in Oregon, born in Portland, moved back to the District 3 area about 23 years ago when I had my son, and started my path to nursing as a single mother and working full time. I've been in the healthcare field as a registered nurse since 2007. I've been working in our community with our most vulnerable as a home health nurse for many of those years. And I am running because I'm feeling the need for our nation to head in a direction that really is focusing on purpose, focusing on giving our constituents a vision of kind of who we are as a nation, and get back to, the important matters, that matter to your average American. And I exemplify that. I am your average middle class, blue collar worker. And I resonate with a lot of the residents here in Oregon and District 3 that feel a sense of lack of safety and security. And so I feel like that's really important that we bring those issues to Washington and help support our Oregonians and just our future and make it much brighter.
Thank you very much, Ms. Orwig. Ms. Harbour, you have your opening statement now. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joanna Harbour, and I live in Estacada, Oregon. I graduated high school in Estacada. I got my bachelor's degree in political science in Idaho. I obtained my Juris Doctorate at Willamette University College of Law in Salem and passed the bar in 2003. In 2004, I started a law practice in my hometown of Estacada until 2017, taking on business, formation, divorce, estate planning, adoption, guardianship, business disputes, and other types of cases. I reactivated my law license in 2021. And 2022, I worked with some nonprofits and did some pro bono work. In 2023, I started doing family law and estate planning cases again, as well as continuing advising in pro bono basis. My background is advocating for my clients. I'm ready and able to advocate for the people of Congressional District 3 and fight for their interests and rights. As a lawyer, I'm able to read and understand laws. I'm a good listener, and I'm used to listening to my clients about their problems, coming up with solutions, and implementing those solutions. And I can negotiate and reach settlements. I will take these skills to Washington, D.C. and start Congressional 3 in a new direction, a direction of prosperity and safety. Congressional District 3, which includes some of Clackamas County and all of Hood River, has had the same leadership for decades, and none of the problems have been solved. In fact, they have gotten worse. Times are hard. People can't afford food and gas. Making a choice between feeding your family and paying your bills shouldn't be a choice we make in this country. Plus, safety shouldn't be a concern in this country. It is a right. Laws must be enforced. We need new direction. I'm interviewing for the job to go back to Congress and fight for new hope, new opportunities, and new resources for Congressional District 3. And I ask the people of Congressional District 3 to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harbour. We're now going to turn to policy questions. And again, each candidate has 1 minute to answer the question. We're going to start with Ms. Harbour. And the question is, what changes, if any, would you support in Congress to address the issue of climate change?
So with regard to this issue, it's a very divisive issue, and we are going to have to come up with a way to address environmental safety, because everyone deserves clean water and clean air, and get both sides to come to the table. When you use certain words, you won't get the Republicans to listen and the Democrats. So we need to come together to work together to make sure that everyone in this country, including the indigenous population, has access to clean water and air. And I believe we can do that if we put aside partisan talking points and just work together for the good of the people.
Thank you. Mr. Dye, same question to you.
Well, the issue of climate change has become completely politicized. I really don't believe these government scientists that are saying things about, 2.6 degrees in the future and melting ice caps and all this kind of stuff. Really, I look around and I don't see any climate change. I don't see it in Portland or anywhere else. But what we should be doing is probably two things. We should be promoting nuclear energy, a big comeback with nuclear energy, with the new technology that we have in nuclear energy to provide electricity. And the other thing, I think the government should be more promoting of plug-in hybrid vehicles rather than electric vehicles. Uh, I have a plug-in hybrid vehicle, and 90% of my driving is electric, and that would be the same way with the commuters back and forth in the morning and the afternoon. And when you need to go out of town far away, you have the gasoline engine. The battery, the lithium battery, is a much smaller, and
Okay, we're going to have to, can you
that's the
wrap it up
solution.
here? Can you wrap it
That
up?
is the solution.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Orwig, do you remember the question?
I think so, yes.
Okay,
So, well, climate change is definitely a hot topic these days, and I think it's very important. But I also want to just take a minute to praise Oregon for all of our efforts that we do towards climate change. And I do believe that absolutely clean water is a right. I believe, though, that Oregon really is a leader in promoting things to improve our climate, in issues with climate change. That being said, I think it's important that we do work together in a divided Congress to solve these problems. And for Oregon, I think it's just more promoting more resources and funding to continue doing the things that we are already doing. But also, I feel it's very important that we actually work towards making a global effort to make sure that other nations are accountable across the board.
thank you for your response. Okay, the next question is, we start off with Ms. Orwig, and it is, what changes, if any, would you support in gun safety laws?
Okay. Well, again, another extremely important conversation that I think has just been across the board for many, many years. I am in support of the Second Amendment, and I never, ever want to support anything that's going to take away the rights of any citizen, regardless of what it is. That being said, I do feel that it's critically important that we make sure that we're working towards important tasks to alleviate, criminals, having access to guns and things like that. So I support our law enforcement. I support education. I support, education for gun safety and responsible gun ownership.
Thank you. Ms. Harbour, your response?
So the Second Amendment is very clear that it can't be infringed. So whatever we do, we have to make sure we're not infringing on anyone's right to own a gun. But there are some things we can do. And one of the things I think in our country we lack, especially in Oregon, is help for mental illness. I think we need to do more to help people who have mental illness problems and try and prevent suicides and violence with guns through that aspect. And we need to enforce the laws we have on the books that prevent criminals from having guns in the first place and prevent them from using gun violence. And anything else we do, we have to make sure it does not do an undue burden on people owning a gun. I am for gun safety classes, but they can't be too expensive. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mr. Dye, your thoughts?
12 years ago, my kids were about ready to jump on Santa's lap when the gunfire rang out at Clackamas Town Center. That was a terrifying experience. We were interviewed on Channel 6 a couple of times over the next year or so about that. But what I want to say is that was something personal, and it does not affect my support for the Second Amendment at all. I think the one restriction I would have on guns is that you shouldn't be able to own a gun more powerful than what the police have. So, if the police are able to have a semi-automatic, then people should be able to have a semi-automatic or even an automatic. That's the way it should be, because our founders were really afraid of a tyrannical government, and they wanted a militia to be able to fight that in case it does come about.
Okay. All right, let's turn to another subject. What changes, if any, would you support on congressional action on voting rights? And we're going to start this question with Ms. Joanna Harbor.
Yeah, so voting is extremely important. It is a right that everybody has who's eligible to vote, and we need to guarantee that everyone has access to vote. But we also need to make sure their vote isn't being diluted by people who aren't able to vote voting. So we need to do clean voter rolls. We need to make sure that every state has it so that people can easily access the voting process, that they can register and be able to vote. But we also need to make sure only eligible voters are voting. And so it's a balancing act that we need to do to make sure every eligible voter can vote, but nobody who can't votes. And so those are steps that need to be taken really at the state level, but Congress can encourage and provide financial resources to help enable and ensure that that's done.
All right, Mr. Dye, what are your thoughts here?
Well, first of all, only citizens of the United States should be allowed to vote, nobody else. Secondly, I think there is a strong indication of voter fraud with our electronic voting systems. And so I really don't think we should have as much paper or mail-in ballots as we do now. I think those should be asked for, and they shouldn't be projected out to everybody like is done in Oregon right now. Also, I think there should be voter ID in any instance, and signature checking. You know, if ballots are mailed in. Yeah, I think it's just terrible how a large portion of our population really does not believe that the voting is truthful and accurate, and that's just being, you know, dismissed.
Okay.
You can't have questions like that in our democracy.
All right. Ms. Orwig, your thoughts here?
Yes. Well, I want to say first of all that I am proud of Oregon, that we have our existing voting laws and how we vote. I feel like it's been successful for many years. So again, I think that we're a leader in how voting should look like. That being said, I do not believe that anybody who is not legally able to vote should vote. And I think that voter ID would be one way that we can promote, some integrity in that instance. But I also just feel like we should just continue to build and expand on what Oregon's already been doing.
You are watching the video of the voter forum of the League of Women Voters of Portland, or listening to our podcast for candidates for the Republican nomination for election to the U.S. House of Representatives for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. Now another policy question. 2 days ago, the United States House of Representatives voted on a bipartisan basis to provide aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Southeast Asia. What is your reaction to their action, and would you have done the same? And we're going to start on this question with Joanna Harbor.
Thank you. So with Ukraine, we've already sent a ton of money to Ukraine with no accountability to know how that money is being used and to see results from it. So I would not vote for Ukraine until we've had that accountability to see exactly that it's being used for what we want and not other things. With regard to Israel, Israel has the right to defend itself. It was brutally attacked on October 7th. They still have hostages that have not been released. So I do agree with funding Israel. And with Southeast Asia, we can't keep funding everyone else's problems. We need to secure our own border and take care of ourselves. So I'm not sure I would have given that amount of money to Southeast Asia, but thank you.
Mr. Dye, your thoughts?
Funding Taiwan was just a scam. We have an incredible national debt, and we've increased our money supply by a factor of 3 times over the last 15 years. Why are we paying for their weapon system? They're a rich country. They could have paid for it. Regarding Israel, that is a 100-year-old war. And I just don't believe that we should be supporting any state that does not believe in the First Amendment, and regarding religion, basically. And they also are rich enough to be able to pay for these arms. I don't understand why we're going to take out more money in debt to furnish them. And it's not defense. Israel's on the offense. It's like shooting ducks in a barrel right now in Gaza. That's not right. Ukraine, that is a problem that our State Department created by pushing the NATO front lines.
We're going to stop your question
Russia.
there. We're going to stop your question there. Okay. Next question is, what role do you believe Congress should play in addressing?
Gary, Teresa didn't get to answer that.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
I mean, not Gary, Chris. Sorry. I apologize for the wrong name, Chris.
No, that's all right. And
Thank you. Are you ready, Chris?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll make it short. So you had asked, based on kind of what their decision was and how I would react to that, and if I would make the same decision. And I can't honestly say that I would make the same decision or a different decision, because really we're not there in Congress, right? So we don't have all of the facts in front of us. What I can tell you is that a big portion of that Ukraine aid was for the safety of their borders. And so as an American, as someone who doesn't really feel safe right now and in our current state in our nation, and I think that this resonates with a lot of people, that I really feel that they think that we should be securing our border before we, provide aid and money, resources that we don't really have to support someone else's border. As far as Israel, we are a nation of democracy. We have always defended other countries that have, a democracy as well. And we should be providing aid to our allies.
I'm going to have to stop your answer there. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me of the order here. The next question I have is, what, if any, weight should voters give to the number of a candidate's financial supporters, the identity of their donors, and the amount of their average contributions? We're going to start this question with Ms. Harbaugh.
Okay, so with regard, I believe we need transparency in donations, and so that voters do have that information, and it's up to the individual voters to decide what to give weight to, who gives, how much they give, and the amount is given. I really cannot tell a voter what to think or how to think about that type of issue. It's just important that they have the information so that they can make the decision themselves.
Ms. Erwig, your thoughts?
Well, I think that we have a good process in place that shows, candidate transparency and donations and how they're spending their money. But I actually take pride in the fact that I've only had small donors. I don't want big donors. I want to be transparent. I want this to be grassroots for people to know that I'm going to Washington for them, not for big donors and things like that. So transparency, yes, is important. The smaller, the better.
Mr. Dye, your thoughts?
Yes, transparency is the answer. Limitations on campaign funding is not the answer. I don't think there should be any kind of limits on anybody, including foreigners. As long as there's transparency and people see how much and who is donating to a candidate, well, the candidate is going to have to answer for that. And, I think that would be a natural filter to filter out foreign entities and from, be involved in our campaigns.
All right. The next question is, what role do you believe Congress should play in addressing income inequality in America? We'll start with Mr. Dye.
Yeah, this is one of my innovative solutions. I'm not sure if I can explain it in 1 minute, but basically I believe in going to a transaction tax and scrapping, the income tax and every other kind of tax for the most part. One rate for everything. That includes food, shelter, charity, inheritance, capital purchases, capital sales, one transaction tax. And I want to couple that with universal basic income, which might raise an eyebrow amongst libertarians and Republicans. But I want to do that and scrap all of the other separate welfare agencies, you know, find one number and give that to everybody, including Elon Musk and the billionaires. Everybody gets the same amount, a subsistence amount. And I think with that, we can really do a lot of good with the budget by cutting a lot of programs and federal employees.
All right, Ms. Orwig, your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I mean, I think that income inequality is real and it does need to be addressed. I think it's very challenging when we have obviously various levels of income. And in my experience and people that I've spoke with, it's very, very difficult for them to see how, they're having to work 50, 60 hours a week, to provide more taxes, to pay for resources and funding for, people that maybe have a little bit more challenged or are not able to, excel in work and things like that. So yes, it needs to be addressed, whether it's, what do you call it? Income for all. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, but I think that we need to bring more jobs, more education, more tax incentives and things like that to help, and then also control rent costs and things like that. But as far as my thing is never take from another person, to
Thank you
foster another person's defense. It's not acceptable.
for your answer. Ms. Harber?
Thank you. So this is actually a local issue because what works in Oregon wouldn't necessarily work in New York or Texas. And so Congress can't really mandate something. As a Republican, I'm for free markets. And if you take away people's incentive to work for what their abilities are and what they're due, some people won't work. And so I'm not for one income size fits all. And I'm definitely not for one solution fits all, because what even works in a state in the urban area may not necessarily work in the rural area. But what Congress can do is hold hearings and have meetings to figure out what's working in each region and what's not working, and share those resources with the other parts of the country so that everyone can start having things work and stop doing the things that don't work.
Right. The next question is, if elected, what would be the subject of the first bill you would introduce if you expected to introduce any bill? We're going to start with Ms. Orwig.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. If elected, what would be the subject of the first bill you would introduce if you expected to introduce any bill?
Well, I think that the first bill, and it's a general broad, is just national safety, national security, making sure that our borders are closed and that we're vetting people appropriately, so that we know who's coming into our country. I think that that is a huge issue that is actually probably the number one issue that the people I speak with that are concerned is our national security. So anything that would promote that would be probably first on the agenda.
All right. Mr. Dye, your thoughts?
Mine would be the U.S. Citizenship Act. And what that would do is make your citizenship private property of yourself. It is your citizenship. It's not the government's citizenship. And with that, you should be able to sell your citizenship to a foreigner and get out. With this, we would get rid of legal immigration. We'd get rid of illegal immigration and replace it with a market system. And with that, the government could sell its own citizenships and bring that money in. And that would be a way for people coming into this country to pay some kind of dues for what they're getting here, right? And, even homeless people right now, they would have the option of selling their citizenship and taking that money to a third world country and live like a king. I think this would be the best solution to our problems we have right now.
All right, Ms. Harber, your thoughts?
Thank you. So, securing the border and national security is a top issue. However, I have a feeling that others will already have bills on the work, so I could just co-sponsor that. I think my first bill would be one that would actually gain bipartisan support. And it's kind of a small thing, but not for the people who live in the region. And that is to stop the practice of let it burn in the national forest to protect our forest and stop fires that affected Clackamas and Hood River, and the smoke affected the Portland area. And so I think that would be a bill that could actually get passed. And so that might be my first standalone bill, but there'd be other bills that I would automatically start both sponsoring and working on as well.
Okay, a different question. If elected, on what current House committees would you seek appointment and why? And we'll start with Ms. Orwig.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is agriculture. I feel like our small farmers are being restricted, and there's been a lot of regulation recently that has strongholded them, and I want them to succeed. So our small farmers are super important to Oregon, as well as our, larger farms. So I think that would be a key one. And then, of course, national security is a huge one. So, yeah.
Mr. Dye, your thoughts there?
Well, number one, I'd want to be on a finance committee because, our country is headed for an economic calamity with the national debt and all the money printing we're doing. But besides that, I'm a chemical engineer. I've been in the oil industry and the natural gas industry. I've also got degrees in physics and mathematics, and I've got an MBA. So maybe some committees involving energy and also high tech kind of stuff. I think that would be a best fit for me.
Okay. How about you, Ms. Harbor?
So I would be one from a delegation of 6 from Oregon, and I'd want to work with them and not double up and put more than one Oregonian representative in the same committee. And I know we already have someone in agriculture, but for the district of CD3, I think it would be beneficial to be in an infrastructure committee. Maybe the Judiciary Committee for the law and order aspect would be interesting. And just any committee I could actually be able to get on, since I would be a freshman, that would help my district is where I'd want to be.
All right. Next question. This is, does your campaign have any personal restrictions on any otherwise legal campaign contributions that a congressional candidate can accept? In other words, is there any money that a normal candidate or a regular candidate could accept that you say you're not going to accept? And we'll start answers with Ms. Harbor.
So I have not put in any restrictions, but I've also not had many corporations, or actually corporations can't donate, many big donor money coming in. But basically, whenever anyone gives to me, they're giving to my candidacy, and they're not really expected to get anything in return other than a promise that I will listen and always tell the truth to all my constituents. And so the restriction really comes from that they need to understand that their money doesn't buy anything from me other than that I will be the candidate that I promise to be, which will always listen to the people and be honest and forthright with what I am doing.
Ms. Orwig, your thoughts?
I don't think that there's any restrictions other than I honestly do not. I prefer not to take any kind of corporate or big donor type donations. Like I said earlier, this is basically a mom and pops, middle class American grassroots campaign. And I think the main thing for me is just for people to get out and vote, because your vote matters, and tell your friends to vote as well.
Mr. Dye, your thoughts?
Well, I'm not accepting any campaign contributions during the primary election. However, I don't really expect to get very many contributions because, as a libertarian, everyone knows that libertarians cannot be bought off. We're ideologues, and So there's no reason to give us money to bribe us to do certain laws and do certain kind of favors.
Okay. All right, I think we have time for one more question. So, what changes in national health policy, if any, would you support? We're going to start with Mr. Dye.
This is a very, very tough question. We've got ourselves in a huge, huge mess, getting the government more and more involved in the healthcare industry. And basically, what that's done, it's made doctors very, very rich. It's made hospitals very, very rich. It's made the drug companies very, very rich. It's made the insurance companies very, very rich. And it's made the medical device industry very, very rich. And as a result of that, you know, we're paying, the government at least is paying all this money to them for their enrichment and putting us more and more into debt. And of course, there's still a lot of people that don't have any insurance because they can't afford it. And the people that are on insurance, they're still paying some pretty darn high premiums. So, we got to untangle the mess here by, trying to move government out of the medical industry.
All right, your thoughts, Ms. Harbaugh?
Thank you. As someone who was actually kicked off of a good insurance plan when the Affordable Care Act went into place, I understand the sufferings that people go through. And as someone who also helps my parents go through the medical industry, I see that we've had a decline in services since that act went into place. So we really do need to revisit that and fix the holes and make sure that everyone is able to access insurance if they want it. And we need to work on making it, it was called the Affordable Care Act, but it made things more expensive. So we need to do things to reverse that and actually try and make it so it is affordable, because healthcare is so important and a lot of people need it in order to function and do everything they need. And so it has to be worked on, it has to be changed, but it needs to be more of a free market and less government intervention.
Ms. Orwig?
Yes, I agree with the other candidates. We have to make healthcare more affordable. We also have to bring more accountability for spending. And, at the end of the day, when we take resources from other places like our veterans and Medicare, that's not going to do well for anybody. So I believe in free market. I believe in competition. I believe in reducing the influence of pharmaceutical companies, and that everybody has the right to have health insurance, and that it be affordable. There's a lot of people that work that technically are supposed to be getting insurance and medical insurance, and they don't because it's just not affordable. So we have a lot of work to do.
All right. Thank you all. You may now provide your closing statements with Ms. Orwig going first. Ms. Orwig, 2 minutes.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. I feel like the voting process is super important, and having this forum it's an amazing way for people to kind of inform themselves about, who to choose to vote for. I started this campaign because I wanted to find a way to help in my community. I wanted to support our Republican base, and I just felt a need. And so, with a lot of prayer and a lot of discussions with my family, decided that this was the route that I was going to go. And I am 100% committed to representing District 3. I've never been more committed. I've put myself through nursing school. I've raised my son alone. And I didn't do that if I didn't have sheer grit and determination. And that's going to extend into this candidacy and to me in Congress. So again, get out there and vote. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Dye.
Well, I regret that we only had 1 minute answers to these things. I mean, I don't think I expressed my opinions on various subjects as well as I probably could if I had more time. But I want to maybe say a little bit something about our foreign policy. I just, it's just terrible how we've become this warmongering state and trying to get ourselves involved in every war possible around the world and furnishing armaments around the world to kill more and more people. Again, what happened in with Russia is that, you know, Russia was attacked by Napoleon in World War I. Germany took over Ukraine. World War II, we know about that and how the Germans went almost to Moscow. So they always had this threat from the West. And what did we do? We kept moving the NATO line closer and closer and closer to the border until finally they said, we want to bring in Ukraine into NATO. Russia said no. They finally said no. We promised Russia that we wouldn't move NATO. We wouldn't bring in more countries into NATO, but we broke that promise. We caused this war in Ukraine. That is our fault. And hundreds of thousands of people are dying because of that. We've got to stop the warmongering. We've got to basically pull our troops out of NATO and make NATO basically a cooperative system where we're only going to cover our own military defense, you know, North America. And if NATO or our allies or Japan gets into trouble, then we will lend our military to them. But we're not going to be stationing our troops there as tripwires so that we can get involved in more and more wars. This has got to stop. And it's bankrupting us. We can't afford to do this anymore. We're going to cripple ourselves into a massive depression if we don't make changes.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. Ms. Harbor.
Thank you, Chris. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, East Metro, and all the partners that work to bring forth this forum. It is so important that the voters have as much information as they need. Again, I am Joanna Harbor, and I am running for Congressional District 3 to represent the voters there, to go back and fight for them so that they can have prosperity and safety. And I will do my best and use all the skills I have attained as being a lawyer and throughout my life experiences to represent them. If they would like to learn more about me, they can visit my website at www.joanna4oregon.com. Thank you.
This concludes today's voter forum for the candidates for the Republican nomination for the U.S. House of Representatives, Oregon District 3. We thank each of the candidates for their participation. Audience members, please share this forum recording and podcast with your family and friends. We all need to be informed voters. If you are registered to vote by April 30th, and in this case in the Republican Party, you should receive your ballot by May 6th. As with all Oregon elections, almost all voters will be able to participate by mailing in their ballots, although in-person voting is available. Check your Multnomah County voters pamphlet online or when the paper copy arrives by mail at your household. To be counted, ballots must be postmarked by Tuesday, May 21 at 8 p.m. You can also find an official ballot drop box location near you by checking www.vote411.org or in the Multnomah County's voters pamphlet. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit membership organization. We hope this forum was helpful to you. We welcome you to join or contribute at lwvpdx.org. This is Chris Kobe for the League of Women Voters of Portland. Thank you for watching and listening and for being an informed voter. And remember, your vote counts.